So recently I received a comment on one of my videos that had what I consider to be some quite outdated advice. And it's advice that if you took it to the letter of what this person said, you could potentially ruin some of your images. So I wanted to talk about that in case there's other people out there with this idea in their head. So as you can see, I'm in a bit of burnt out wood. Now this hasn't been from a bushfire, it's actually right near where I live, and they did some what they call hazard reduction burning here only about a month ago. It wasn't very pleasant with the smoke, but it does help to minimise the chance of bushfires. So I'll read out to you the comment that I got, and then I want to go through a number of reasons why I believe that advice is outdated. Please use lower ISO. That is just too high. Start with ISO 100, maybe until 400 or 640 max. No higher, because you're just ruining the quality of the photos. Now, we've all heard the common story of always shoot at ISO 100. There's reasons why you would do that, but there's also reasons why you wouldn't. And I want to get into those reasons why you wouldn't. Now, before I get into the specific scenarios, I want to talk a bit about cameras first, because cameras have come a long way in the last 10 to 20 years. And once upon a time, I remember I started off with the Canon 350D and then I went to a 550D. And I can remember the moment that I decided I wanted to upgrade to a 6D because I was shooting at ISO 400 and it was so noisy, and I just went, no. So, once upon a time, cameras, high ISO, didn't handle it very well. Although even back then, the 6D was pretty darn good, and so were all the other full frame cameras. So nowadays, most modern cameras, even if they're not full frame, like the Fuji has excellent high ISO, low noise as well. Most cameras do a really good job at high ISO. Not only that, my camera is a little bit different to what a lot are. You've got your base ISO, which is how sensitive the sensor is to light. When you start going up, doesn't make it more sensitive, it just kind of adds gain to it, a bit like you would with, say, a microphone, turning the gain up. So you're kind of amplifying the signal, I guess you might say, which is why you tend to see the noise increasing as you put your ISO up. Now, different cameras and different profiles have different base ISOs. The profile I shoot with my photos on my camera, the base ISO is actually ISO 200, not 100. I can't shoot at 100 in that one. 200 is the lowest it will go. The second thing with my camera that's worth noting is it's actually dual base ISO, which means there's two bases where the noise is going to be minimal. In my case, in the profile I shoot in, the second base, as well as the ISO 200, is ISO 1250. So with my camera, there's actually less noise at ISO 1250 than there is at, say, ISO 640 or 800. So already we can see that advice that I shouldn't go over 640 shows that they don't know what sort of camera I'm shooting with and what it's capable of. And this is one of the dangers of just giving out advice willy-nilly to people without having any understanding of themselves, their situation, and what they're using. So not only are cameras much better at dealing with high ISO now than they used to be, but we also have some great options with software to reduce noise in your images. So whether it's with the enhanced denoise in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw, or things like Topaz Denoise, they do an excellent job of cleaning up images, even if you do end up getting some noise there. So what are the different reasons why you would shoot at a higher ISO? The first obvious one is if you don't have a tripod and you're hand holding and you need to get a fast enough shutter speed so as not to get camera shake. I can absolutely guarantee you camera shake is going to ruin your photos well more than noise will. Now, another reason you might shoot at a higher ISO is because you have something that's moving in the scene and you want to freeze it. You don't want that movement. Now, often with water, we do want a little bit of movement, but often what you don't want is movement in your trees and your foliage. Sometimes you might choose to do that for artistic reasons, but often we want it nice and sharp. And I believe that in the video that this comment was on, that was exactly the reason why I was shooting at a higher ISO, was to get a high enough shutter speed that the movement of the leaves and the branches and everything didn't show. So an extension of the last point is obviously astrophotography. If you're trying to take photos of the stars in the sky or the moon, you're going to have to put your ISO up higher in order to get a short enough shutter speed that you don't get any movement. Now, a quick update about my eye. First off, I want to thank everybody so much for your kind words of support. It really means a lot to me. Look, there's a lot worse things that can happen than this, but it has been quite frustrating. And I do appreciate everybody's thoughts and well wishes. So on the whole, I'd say it has improved. It's been a lot less blurry than it has been on the most part up until now, except as Murphy's Law will have it, today is the worst it has been for about the past week. So I've found taking pictures to be okay. Where I've had some issues is looking more at the middle ground for when I'm walking around, that things are a little bit wavery and disconcerting. So that's a bit annoying, a bit frustrating, but that's life. It hasn't changed at all my vision so far. So it is a bit of a slow process. And if you saw my last video, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and have a watch of that so you do. I've gone back to my old glasses with the lens missing because this eye's just changed enough that the new ones I got just aren't really working properly for it. Now, I have to say, being on my computer can be probably the most difficult thing that I'm finding, and particularly editing photos is a bit of a challenge with all the detail that's in them. I find I get tired really quickly of being able to look, and I just kind of find it a bit hard. So editing is an absolute minimum at the moment. So let's go have a look at what I've got. to summarise my thoughts from this morning, I think you should use the lowest ISO you can in order to get the shutter speed that you need to use. So if shutter speed doesn't matter, you've got a tripod, nothing's moving, then absolutely use the lowest ISO you can for the cleanest images. But the thing is, if that's not the case, if you need a higher shutter speed because you're hand holding or because there's movement in the scene and you need to up the ISO, then that's when you should do it, because otherwise you could end up ruining your images. Now, I've got a bit of a rule of thumb with rules that anytime somebody says to you a hard and fast rule, you must do it this way without any sort of nuance. I always take those with a healthy grain of salt, because I've got to say, in photography and in life, there is very little that is so black and white that there is a absolute hard and fast rule that you should follow every time. So just be a bit wary of people when they are giving you hard and fast advice about things like that. And look, I think this is a great example of why unsolicited advice given when people don't know your circumstances isn't that helpful. And if you want to hear a bit more about that, I've shot a whole video where I had talked about it, and you can check that out here. All right, guys, I hope you're doing well. You get outside and get taking lots of photos, and I will catch you all next time.